sound off for you to speak your mind. This show is for the faithful.
Touchdown! Touchdown!
Dub Nation.
Bang! Steph Curry again!
And the seam heads that bleed orange and black.
Goodbye!
This is Sports Phone KNBR. Sponsored by Industrial Metal Supply on the sports leader. Check the live stream on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Welcome into a Friday edition of Sports Phone KNBR. My name is Bill Lasky, hosting the show for the next couple hours as the San Francisco Giants went into Target Field tonight with a very hot team, the Minnesota Twins, that they had won 5 in a row. And that went back to the weekend where they played the Boston Red Sox in Boston, taking the Saturday and Sunday game, winning 2 there. And then they came back to Target Field and played the Orioles Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and swept the Orioles 7-1, 5-2, 5-2. So the Minnesota Twins were playing extremely well, starting to hit the ball better. Their averages are starting to go up, and overall record was going up. At home at Target Field, they had won 11 games. Now 11 games out of 12. They were 10 for 11. And that's a big home field advantage. Now going in today, when you were looking at the starting pitchers, Jordan Hicks against Chris Paddock, and Chris Paddock has not been throwing the ball well at all when you look at his record. He was 0-3. He had thrown 32 and a third innings, 32 hits, 20 earned runs, 6 home runs, and he had a 5.5 earned run average. But today, you're in the big leagues. You're in Major League Baseball. And any pitcher at any time can do what he did today. And he got into a rhythm from the first inning. And it was close. Willie Adames hit a ball right down the left field line. Could have been a home run. Just hooked a little bit before the pole. But after that, he was dialed in. After the second inning, 6 up, 6 down. He'd thrown 16 pitches, 14 for strikes. 6 up, 6 down. As the game went in, he got into the 6th inning with a perfect game until Christopher Koss got a base hit with 2 outs in the 6th inning. 17 Giants in a row, 17. Not one base runner, not one walk. They just couldn't adjust to what he was throwing, and it was mostly fastballs. He got up to about 96 miles an hour. He elevated a lot of fastballs, got under the ball, struck out 6, had a nice change-up and a curveball. You know, he changed up speeds. That's what you want to do. When you look at him, 6'5", big right-hander, throws over the top. They just couldn't adjust to it. They made some good, solid contact, but nothing major. Until Matt Chapman came up in the 7th inning with 2 outs and hit his 8th home run, a 1-0 fastball leaked over the plate, and Chapman hit it to left center field. It still was a game that they could have won, but they just couldn't do anything after that. A base hit in the 8th inning, and that was the only base runner the Giants had after that. And sure enough, the Giants lose 3-1 on 1 run, 3 hits. They made an error. Elliot Ramos ran over a ball. But it was really, when you look at what Jordan Hicks did, he was good enough to win this game. He got his fastball was elevated at 101, 100. He was throwing extremely hard. But they ambushed him in the first 2 hitters. They got on him in the bottom of the 1st inning. The first pitch he threw, Byron Buxton hits a triple to right center field. Blast, boom, bomb, triple. And with his speed, he was standing up on 3rd. Trevor Larnach watches a pitch, and then he hits a base hit to left center. 3 pitches thrown, they've already got a run with a runner on first base. He gets a line drive by France for a double play, and then he gets a ground ball to get out of it, but the Twins had got a run already in the bottom of the 1st inning. And Chris Paddock was in and out, in and out, in and out. You're talking about a guy throwing 8, 9, 10 pitches every inning. And when you look at his numbers, 21 first pitch strikes for 25 hitters, and he really kind of fell behind when he got a little tired in that 7th inning. And it was just a point where he was just going right at hitters. When you look at that many first pitch strikes, he's coming right at you. And it was mostly fastballs, cross-seam fastballs. There wasn't much movement. He pinpointed a lot. The changeup and a curve, like I said, 14 and 12. That's how many pitches he threw of those. He mixed up. But the Giants weren't crisp. Susan Slusher wrote that Bob Melvin said in his post-game remarks, he was a little disturbed that the hitters didn't give better effort. That's what Bob Melvin said tonight. He said they weren't crisp. They weren't swinging that well. They just didn't have it tonight. Well, that happens. It happens. They were just playing Chicago, and those 3 games were exciting. Every one of those games were. They lost Monday 9-2. This Tuesday game, 9 runs in the 11th inning. How exciting was that game? You didn't want to turn off the television. You were watching every minute. You were listening to it on KNBR. They come back and win 14-5. And then Robbie Ray, just a magnificent game on Wednesday, and they win 3-1. They walk out of Chicago winning 2 out of 3 from one of the top teams in the National League. And then they get a day off, which they need. These days offs are going to come every Thursday. It's something that you rejuvenate your body. You get away from the game. You have a little entertainment, do a couple things. They came in today with, I really felt they had an advantage tonight. Looking at Chris Paddock and what he did up until this point, his last 4 games, he's only lasted 5 innings in each one. Giving up 3, 1, 2, 1. Keeps him in the game. Well, so does Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks had a better opportunity today if they would have scored some runs. And he has been throwing pretty good. Colorado, 5 innings, 3 earned runs. Texas, 5 innings, 2 runs. So what I like what I'm seeing out of Jordan Hicks, and I think we're seeing this a lot from Giants fans, is no walks. Again, no walks. And I think that's what I really pat him on the back with, because he's coming right at hitters. 79 pitches he threw in 6 innings, 52 for strikes. I like that. An array of pitches, a lot of sinkers today, the movement away from a lefty into a righty. The sweeper, which is sort of like a slider, goes from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, were his 2 best pitches. He threw 69 of those, 101 mile an hour sinker. That's pretty tough on your elbow, but he can do it. Threw a couple fastballs at 198. The velocity was there. It was 84 degrees at game time. Minnesota is heating up. The weather this weekend is going to be real nice. And tomorrow, of course, Logan Webb against Joe Ryan, a couple of great pitchers going tomorrow. But today it was Chris Paddock. 7 1/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run. That was Matt Chapman's home run. No walks, 6 strikeouts. He was ahead of hitters, 6 ground ball outs, 10 fly ball outs, and he just run into a pitcher like this. In his 6 years, he pitched, don't forget, he pitched 3 years with the Padres. He's pitched 3 years now with Minnesota. He's going into his 7th year. I looked up his number. He's only 27 and 27 lifetime, 4.4 earned run average, but tonight it was his night. This happens. It happens in Major League Baseball. It happens anywhere in baseball. When a pitcher gets in his rhythm and he gets his pitches in the zone, this is what happens. And when you get into a rhythm, doesn't matter what you throw, it's an out. Doesn't matter how you squeeze a pitch, it's a strike. And tonight was Chris Paddock's night. You tip your hat and you move on. But I like what Bob Melvin said. We just didn't adjust much. It wasn't a good effort. And I think that's what he saw tonight compared to what he saw the 3 games in Chicago. Maybe the day off, you get a little complacent, but you can't blame that. These guys are major league players. The day off gets you rejuvenated. And I think that's what I wanted to see out of the offense today, to give Jordan Hicks some early runs, but it didn't happen. So now the Giants are 24-15. When you look at their numbers, they're 11-5 against the American League, counting this loss. When you look at the month of May, 5-3. All good numbers. They're playing good baseball. You can't really deprive them of that. Against right-handers, they're 22-5 going into today. Now they're 22-6. They do really mount an attack against right-handers. But overall, I'm very pleased with this season. I'm sure Giants fans are pleased with it. You still got 2 games left to try to pull this out before they come home and play the Diamondbacks, who the Diamondbacks are playing the Dodgers tonight. So 808 KNBR, if you want to get on the phone lines, let's talk some Giants baseball. I got Steve Kroner coming on later to talk about this game and more baseball. But today, besides Jordan Hicks throwing, Kyle Harrison's up. And we had made that call last weekend. And I feel that Kyle Harrison's got his velocity back. He got up to 98 today. 96 was an average. Threw 28 fastballs, 8 curveball or 8 sliders, or a slurve, as they call it when you're looking up statistics. And if he's at 98, 96, that's where we want to see Kyle Harrison coming out of the bullpen. He threw 2 nice innings, no hits, 3 walks, 1 intentional. I'm sure they'll talk about him getting a walk. He ended up getting 2 outs in the 8th before he walked Jeffers. These are things that haunted him when he came up before. But again, we're seeing a young kid back up with confidence, and I think that's what Giants fans as well as the Giants brass want to see. He's got electric stuff, and I'm just glad he found it, went back to Sacramento, got the velocity back into big leagues where he belongs, and that's where you look at him in that bullpen as a middle guy, as a lefty. And I think that's what we want to see. We want to see a little bit more of that. And with Hayden Birdsong down there, the two young pitchers, they're going to get some innings, but they're learning to pitch in the big leagues. Pitch in front of big crowds. Pitch in different ballparks. That's the education of pitching in the big leagues. All right, let's get the phone lines going. 415-808-KNBR. Let's take a first break. I'm Bill Lasky. I'm the host of Sports Phone KNBR. More coming up right here on KNBR, the sports leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, back on Sports Phone KNBR with Bill Lasky on a Friday night. Giants lose a tough one in Minnesota, 3-1. The Minnesota Twins have now won 6 in a row. They swept the Orioles, took 2 out of 3 from Boston, and playing real well at Target Field. They're now won 11 out of their last 12. And tomorrow, Logan Webb's going to have to change the luck for the San Francisco Giants. A 4:15 first pitch right here on KNBR. Logan Webb 4-2 with a 2.6 earned run average. He's got 48 in the third innings, 45 hits, 1 home run is given up. The walks and strikeouts are excellent. 56 strikeouts, 13 walks. His last start, of course, got the win against the Rockies, going 7 innings, 6-6, 1 earned run. Going against a native San Franciscan, Joe Ryan. If you remember Joe Ryan, a right-hander, and he's been pitching pretty well for Minnesota. He's 2-2 with a 2.9 earned run average. He beat Boston Red Sox, going 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run. And the LA Angels, he went 7 innings, 4 hits, no earned runs. Those were his last 2 starts. So 2 good pitchers going at it tomorrow. Like I said, first pitch right here on KNBR at 4:15. 808 KNBR, if you want to get on the phone lines, let's go out to San Francisco and talk to Mike. Mike, you're on a Friday night sports phone, KNBR. How's it going tonight, Mike?
Oh, it's going great. How are you, Bill? I hope you're doing good.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Just, I think I'm right there with what Bob Melvin said in his post-game remarks. Susan Slusher threw it out there. They just didn't give them their best effort today hitting. There wasn't many adjustments. And he said the team just wasn't crisp on the offensive side, and I have to agree with that.
Thought so, too. I look at that like we've come into the last 2 series, and we've kind of had an off day here and weren't necessarily ready for what we were going to face.
A hot team. That's one thing, Mike, a hot team. When you're facing the Twins and they just swept the Orioles at Target Field, now you come in on a Friday on their turf and they win another one, and now they won 6 in a row. So you got to do something on the offensive side to kind of balance that and try to win on their home field. And right now, tomorrow, Logan Webb's going to have to fight an uphill battle.
Yeah, I think tomorrow, the next day, we're going to be ready. That's just the way we're working these days. Mm-hmm. But as far as like today goes, Jordan Hicks, he gets a quality start. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying earlier in the broadcast, he's had quite a few recently, and I'm glad to see him picking it up. But Kyle Harrison, I have not seen Harrison throw 98 since he was a top prospect.
Yeah, was a rookie that first year, sure.
With Juan Soto, in the mix. And, coaches telling them down there, like, just bring the dog out. But the slurve, Bill, slurve, I like the slurve better than the curveball because automatically that pitch gives you a launch angle.
The other thing, Mike, on the slurve, you can bring that from the outside as a left-hander with Harrison, bringing it on the outside corner to a righty. A lot of right-handers will give up on that pitch. And you can also drop it on the bottom of the zone and have him swing over it. He threw 8 of those. He mostly with the fastball because they couldn't touch his fastball. I was really happy to see him pitch in Chicago, the 1 inning that really opened the door for him coming back to the big leagues. And today, 2 shutout innings. They didn't hit the ball hard off him at all.
No, not at all. And, the sweeper, too, there, because with the sweeper, even if you're a little bit off, you have a chance to barrel it just by the nature of the pitch. And
it's when you throw it right across the plate where that comes across the plate into a big zone for a hitter. But a lot of times you use that as a secondary pitch to set up that fastball, and that's definitely what Kyle Harrison does with that pitch. He only threw 1 good slider and 1 changeup, but when you come in for 2 innings, if you can maintain a 2-pitch mix, you got through it, and he did. A couple walks, punched out 3, and a lot of those fastballs were right by him.
Yeah, and just last thing before I go, Christian Koss, thank you for breaking up the no-no today.
I think everybody was thanking him.
And
the perfect game, too, Mike. How about that? The perfect game.
Oh, it was a perfect game. Mm-hmm. I hardly even recognized, but Koss, like, we are, like, pulling for you to get that extra base hit, get you off that snide, and, like... Just keep up the good work, my man.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think Christian Koss filling in for Fitzgerald till he gets back, and he's doing what he can do on the defensive side, hitting 9th, trying to put the ball in play. Had a couple nice hits in the Chicago series, and today, just like you said, tip your hat. He broke up the perfect game, and of course Matt Chapman broke up the shutout. But I appreciate your time, Mike. Thanks for calling in on a Friday. A couple things that Mike was talking about, especially on the slurve. It's a tough pitch because you get on side of the ball. And once you're on side of the ball, the thing can go different ways. All right, let's take a quick break here. 808 KNBR if you want to get on the phone lines. I'm Bill Lasky. This is Sports Phone KNBR right here. We'll be right back on The Leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR, streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome into a Friday edition of Sports Phone KNBR with Bill Lasky. Giants lose the first game of a 3-game series against the Minnesota Twins at Target Field, 3-1 today. The only run the Giants scored was a home run by Matt Chapman, his 8th. That happened in the 7th inning. Hits by Christopher Koss in the 6th inning broke up a perfect game by Chris Paddock, and then another base hit by Elliot Ramos in the 8th. But that was it. The Giants were stifled. Chris Paddock goes 7 1/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 6 strikeouts, and at one time in this game had gotten 17 up and 17 down. It wasn't a good night for the hitting, and Bob Melvin said it in the post-game show. It wasn't a good effort on our hitters. We need to be crisp. We need to be better. And it got a couple good pitchers starting tomorrow. Joe Ryan against Logan Webb, and then Sunday, Landon Root against Pablo Lopez, 2 good right-handers that have been pitching very consistently for the Minnesota Twins. And the Twins have now won 6 in a row, and they've won 11 out of 12 at their home field. So an uphill battle here for the San Francisco Giants. But as we all know, it's Saturday, it's Logan Webb Day, and it's win day. So let's see if Logan Webb can break this first gloss and see what they can do tomorrow. The first pitch is 4:15. Extra inning post-game show. I've been doing those on Saturday and Sundays. I got a couple great interviews this weekend. I sat down with Bernard Span. Of course, he's a radio and TV analyst for the Minnesota Twins, as well as he played there, as well as he played with the Giants. So I had a nice conversation with him yesterday. And for Sunday, for Mother's Day, I had an opportunity to talk to Bryce Eldridge, and I had a nice interview with Bryce Eldridge and Joe Nathan. So a couple good interviews coming up here on Saturday and Sunday post-game shows on the Extra Inning post-game show. All right, let's go out to Sebastopol and talk to Eli. Eli, you're on a Friday night Sports Phone KNBR show with Bill Lasky, the big right-hander. How are you?
Bill, good evening. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, pleasure for calling in, and a tough night tonight. The Giants just couldn't get anything going against Paddock. What did you see out of these guys tonight that you saw watching the game from the offensive side?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch the game, or I like to listen on the app, the radio version of the app. I love doing that. But you can tell, I think we've gotten a little spoiled. This season's been so exciting to be a Giants fan. And we've almost become unaccustomed to this kind of game and this kind of loss. So I think we need to recognize what a great season it's been so far.
Yeah, and you know what, Eli? I forgot to throw it out there. It was on Apple TV today, so whoever didn't have Apple TV couldn't watch it, and everybody was listening on the KNBR with Dave Fleming and Hunter Pence. I ended up watching it, but I listened to them, do the game, and it just didn't sound like these guys were watching too many pitches. They were trying to jump on early pitches. I threw this out earlier in the second inning. He only threw 16 pitches in 6 up, 6 down, 14 for strikes. And they punched out 2 times, a couple fly balls, couple ground balls. Right then and there, I was like, this isn't the way the Giants approach pitchers like this. Because Chris Paddock, he was in the mid-90s. He wasn't 98. He wasn't throwing as hard as Jordan Hicks. But they just couldn't come up with any kind of walk, or they didn't even have a base runner, until Christopher Koss got that base hit to break up the perfect game. 17 up, 17 down.
Yep, a slow day for the Giants. But, Bill, I wanted to talk to you about Jung-Hoo Lee. Mm-hmm. And I know Giants fans have really embraced Jung-Hoo Lee, but I still feel like maybe not enough. I mean, this kid is just incredible. You think about coming over from the KBO. You think about the devastating injury he had at the beginning of his career in MLB. And I'm curious, in your opinion, Bill, where would the Giants be this season without Jung-Hoo Lee?
Defensive-wise, I think he's really gotten better in center field. I thought last year, he had some routes, not knowing different ballparks, not even knowing Oracle Park. If you remember the first game he was out there, the sun was dead red in his eyes, and he said, I couldn't see the ball. And when he threw him out there at Oracle Park and really didn't have an opportunity to work in the outfield. This year, he's more comfortable. He's confident in the outfield. I think his defense is spectacular. He gets in the gaps very well. In the offensive side, he's been in a slump lately. He's had some balls right on the wood, the barrel of the wood, right at guys in Chicago. About 3 or 4 hits he could have, had hits on. He's hitting under 300 first time of the year, Eli. But again, he's, I like when he slashes and goes to left field. I like how he does that. But they seem to be either elevating a fastball on him or getting in on his hands a little bit more lately. And watching how he's trying to get away from that. He has to go inside out with that pitch. He's smart enough hitter to do that. But going on what you're saying, boy, I'm right there with you. An exciting player. We're going to see him in a Giants uniform probably for the next 5 years. It's going to be fun watching this kid just generate more and more energy. At first, Eli, I wasn't sold on him being a number 3 hitter. I always thought he was a good, leadoff hitter. But, boy, Bob Melvin and the staff knew better more than I did because he hits that third spot real well. When you're looking at what he's doing, 143 at-bats coming into the game today, 43 hits. He's still not comfortable yet at the plate. I think he's going to go on a run like you and I think he is, and he's going to be a better player than what he's doing in a little slump right now.
Yeah, that's great insights, Bill. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was skeptical when they first signed the contract with him. It sort of felt like a consolation prize after all the big Japanese players went to other teams. But I'm really happy with Jung Hoo Lee, and I think we're going to have a super exciting future with him. Bill, can I do a really quick shout-out?
Yeah, please do.
I want to shout out my 2 boys, Noah and Isaiah, who are listening right now, probably nervous as heck hearing their dad being all weird on the radio. I want to shout them out. They're really, really excellent ball players, and I want to shout out all the Sebastopol Little League ball players out there.
Oh, that's great. That's a good shout out, Eli. And Little League is going on right now. Are they playing summer ball also?
Not there yet. We'll have All-Stars coming up here in about a month. Yep.
What positions they play, Eli?
I got Noah, my 13-year-old, is a shortstop and a closer. And I got Isaiah, first baseman, pitcher, and sometimes we make him catch, but he really doesn't like that too much.
Well, congratulations to both of them, and let them have a great summer ahead of them. And that's a great shout-out, Eli. They should be proud of their dad for doing that.
Appreciate it, Bill. Have a great evening.
Yep, thanks so much. And it's always great. Little League is now going full strength. High school baseball's finishing up. Tournaments are starting. College baseball's coming to the close. They're going to be going to the World Series in June. It's the end of the season of spring, and here the Giants are playing really good baseball, 24-15. They were 10 over going into tonight's game, and I think Giant fans altogether, just like Eli was saying, we're happy with what they're doing. We're playing good baseball. You win some, you lose some, but it's funny because Mike said this earlier, and I didn't pick it up, but it stuck in my head. It seems like they're losing the first game of a series. They lost the first one in the 4-game series against Colorado. They win the next 3. They lose the first game in Chicago. They win the next 2. Well, let's just hope that this continues as they lost the first one in Minnesota. Let's see if they can pull out 2 before they come home and they play the Arizona Diamondbacks for a 3-game series, have Thursday off, and then the Athletics come in for a 3-game series, and then the Kansas City Royals come in for a 3-game series. So 9 games coming up for the San Francisco Giants when they come off the road trip, and it's going to be a nice homestand with some good baseball coming up. All right, let's go to Brian in Modesto. Brian, you're on Sports Phone KNBR with Bill Lasky on a Friday. Hope you're well. What's going on?
Well, it's been a while, Bill.
All right, talk to me, my friend.
Well, you have to admit Buster Posey's doing a great job bringing the toughness to the club.
Yep, I totally agree.
Showing them the way, how you get your hands dirty to win a game. So I had to take care of some family business tonight. I didn't see the game, but I will praise Bill Melvin's comments after the game. He called them out and I guess he was a little, I haven't heard them per se, but I saw them. He was a little bit terse about it, I guess. And sometimes as a manager, you have to be terse when quite frankly, the hitters don't give the right effort.
Yeah, and I think what he saw is, as I said in my open, Chris Paddock, this guy's been struggling. He had a 5.5 earned run average, and he hit spots, but he elevated a lot of fastballs. He off-sped when he had to. He used his curveball, used his changeup. But there was no adjustments of going the opposite way, trying to hit a hole, and it just seemed like it was just dominoes, one after another, and it just got to a point after the 3rd inning when they punched out Wade, Bailey, and Koss. I started shaking my head, going, "This isn't good." He struck out 5 out of 9 hitters. I wasn't impressed. I was not impressed what I saw. But as the game continued, he got in a nice rhythm. He got ahead of hitters. He threw the breaking ball out of the zone a few times to get him to chase. And I'm being honest with you, Brian, I really felt it was going to be a perfect game or no hitter the way he was throwing.
Yeah, from what I heard, he was pretty excellent. So I know that this game is partially human nature, and I don't remember what year it was, but I remember the Giants under Dusty. One day they beat another team at Candlestick, And then they had originally scheduled an off day to travel to Miami. But because of a rainout, they had to go to Philadelphia the next day.
I remember that.
That's right. Filling, and they beat him.
And then they went to Miami, wasn't it? Right after that, they had to go do some makeup game. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was toward the end of the season, too, if I'm not mistaken, because they had to make up the game. You know, now that they have that day off on Thursday, it'll be a good day. They'll get their strength back. But this is what happens, Brian, and you probably watch baseball a lot. Once you get that day off, you got to get back in that rhythm. And those 3 games in Chicago were battle games. The last 2 were really good baseball. And you went into a Cub team that was playing really well. So that was a lot to go into, but they had a lot of momentum going into Minnesota with that day off. Let's see if they can spark it up tomorrow.
Right. Well, before I go, I will say this. Thank God Buster Posey is here because we've got some dogs on this team.
Brian, and he was a dog when he played, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a tough. He was one of the toughest competitors I ever saw.
Yeah, so I think a lot of Giants fans feel the same way. But, Brian, thanks for the call tonight. And,
thanks.
You know, it's so true. You know, you get in these games and you're wondering, why can't we get a hit? Why can't we go the other way? Why can't we just lay a bunt down, get something going here? And, you know, Dave Fleming and Hunter both were saying on KNBR, you know, get a hit, see if you get him in a stretch. You know, you start doing different things to that pitcher to affect his rhythm. I pitched for 25 years. Once you get into the groove and you're seeing that glove and you're reaching for that glove every pitch, doesn't matter who's coming up to plate. You get in a rhythm, you get your mindset on what you want to throw, and everything comes out of your hand perfectly. And that's what Chris Paddock did today. I threw his numbers out 6 years up until this year. He was 27 and 27 overall. He's not a lights out guy. He's a consistent guy, but a guy that you beat. And this is where I'm going to say it. That's why I think Bob Melvin was a little upset at the end of the game. He wasn't going at it in a locker room or screaming in the clubhouse. He just said, I'm just a little upset. We just didn't play better. We just didn't have a better effort. And coming from a manager, I agree with him. I think the hitting side just wasn't there tonight. All right, let's go to Bruce in Palo Alto. Bruce, you're on a Friday night with Sports Phone KNBR. How are you doing?
Doing well, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just as I said, you know, I think Bob Melvin was right. The approach from the offense just didn't get going today, and it never even prevailed. They only had 3 hits.
Well, Bill, I guess I don't disagree with you or any of the other callers, but here's my concern. First of all, Chris Paddock looked like a great young pitcher when he came over the Padres before he got hurt.
Right.
And the Giants had their problems with him, as did other teams. He got hurt, and he's become a .500 pitcher. But, you know, my concern is this. I'm older than you, but, you know, you played during a time when, you know, catchers had to hit a bit. And a good defensive catcher would play a couple of times a week. And if he could hit some, he'd play more. I'm wondering well, let me back up a little bit before I ask the question. What's on my mind is, you know, when I hear, you know, questions about why couldn't they get a hit, why couldn't they go the other way, why couldn't, you know, why don't they do better sometimes in, you know, in first game of a series and all. I hate to say it, but when you look at their lineup and you look at the batters hitting around 200 or less, there's a lot of them, Bill. And you can carry a terrific defensive player. It could be a shortstop back in the day. And in this case, a catcher, if you've got the offense. And I think, you know, we're deluding ourselves collectively as fans if we think that we have a everyday lineup that is anywhere close to being as good as that pitching staff, both starters and relievers. And I hate to see guys go out there on the mound and give up a handful of hits, give up maybe 3 runs. I mean, you know, I think Hicks in a lot of ways pitched well enough to win. But I wonder what Buster is thinking as he looks ahead into June and July as far as making some deals, because it's not as if they have a young, bright catcher with a bat, you know, could play 3 days a week in the system. They don't. Not anybody that's ready. And I don't think anybody is about to trade them one unless the Giants were going to give up a lot to get him. But So the bottom line is this, and I just want to get your reaction. I just am afraid that half of this lineup, Lamont Wade, Buster Posey, Cost to some extent, who's ever playing second until Fitzgerald gets back. I feel like I'm forgetting one other player who's struggling around 200 or a little bit less. But those are the three main ones.
Yeah, Bruce, you've hit a lot of them, no question, and there's no doubt about it when you're looking at numbers. And you hit them: Wade 154, Patrick Bailey 188, Christian Cost 209. That's the bottom of the order. That's 7, 8, 9. When you look on the other side, when you're looking at the Minnesota Twins, they're not any better. 221, 224, 100. So I think when you're judging teams, I think a lot of teams are in the same boat the Giants are in. I think when you look at Patrick Bailey, I think you're absolutely right. The bat isn't crisp. He hasn't hit a home run yet. 12 RBIs. He's had a couple key hits in Chicago. I think what Buster Posey's saying, he's probably the best catcher or one of the best catchers defensively. And he gives them some time off, there's no question. But I'm sure they're looking to him to, as a switch hitter, be a better hitter. And it's just not happening. Last year, he got off to a great start and then fizzled after the All-Star game. Trading for a catcher, you could look at every team, and you're going to find one good catcher, and the backup catcher's got a big question mark. Catching is a premier position now. No question about it. But what you're asking for is hopefully these guys will start hitting. They've now over 100 at-bats when you're looking at Lamont Wade Jr. had 101, Bailey had 98, but most of the guys are close to 150 now. And I always look at the 200 mark. You're looking at a third of the season because they're 24 and 15. The good, the bad, the ugly. I think you look at the ugly with some of the batting average, but there's a lot more good. And there are some question marks on who could play different spots, different places. Let me ask you this. Would you change this lineup that Bob Melvin keeps throwing out there? Are you happy with what you're seeing?
Well, I'll answer the last part first, in that no, and I'm sure a lot of the other fans, when it comes to seeing guys come up to the plate, are not. But I don't think the Giants are showing me, looking down as I have and friends of mine have in the minor leagues, both in AAA and AA. The bats are about the same. I hate to say it. As AAA especially is looking extremely bleak. So it's not like they can dip into the system.
Right.
But, what concerns me, I was thinking back to what you said about Lee, and it could apply to any of the other players. In fact, it could apply a lot to Adames and Chapman in this regard. I think they put a lot of pressure on themselves because they're smart.
Sure.
They know. They love the other players. They love all the guys. There's great camaraderie. But they know that 3 or 4 of the guys in the lineup are just not producing. And the problem is, or the issue is, that all of the players, every player in baseball is going to go through slumps just like they go through streaks. So if you've got a bottom of the order that could hit at least 250, come up with a clutch hit or two, come up with a couple of big long flies every so often to pick everybody else up. Oh, what a difference that makes!
It sure would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a plus right there. And I liked it. I liked it when Tyler Fitzgerald was hitting ninth. That gave you a little spark. He did hit with power here and there, and he gave you that good 9-1-2. I think everybody's circling Lamont Wade Jr. And mostly all my shows, that's one of the concerns at first base. He was an outfielder converted to first base. He's played pretty well first base. He's just not hitting the ball. He's just not hitting the ball. And when you start looking at the lineup, you look at him and he's going, 154, and
I think,
what can you do? What can you do there? Bryce
let me
Eldridge is not
comment
ready.
about Lamont, because I think Lamont has played a great defensive first base. But let me ask you what you think about this. It seems to me that the players throughout baseball that really come through in the clutch, and the perfect example is Flores, have compact swings. And Lamont Wade has that old-fashioned, big swing, In fact, a swing that looks like he could or should hit a lot of home runs, and he certainly did that first year. But a couple of the players the Giants have, like he and Fitzgerald, just got off to great starts in their careers as Giants in different years, of course. But somehow they weren't able to adjust when pitchers adjusted to them. You remember when Fitzgerald hit those 8, 9 home runs in 12 games or something?
It was something crazy like that. He had 5 in a row or something like that.
And you know where they were. They were all up and in. and he was able to get around them really well. But they're now able to pitch him in a different way, and they're getting him out and they're not adjusting. So to sum it up, we know, you know, and I know, and every fans know that the strength of the Giants in terms of their system is pitching. So the only way they're going to get hitting from another team, because they don't have hitting within their system that's producing, all the fans can look at the minor league stats and see that. They're going to have to trade some pitching to get some hitting, and I think that's what Buster will do. I'm not saying it'll be a catcher.
And you got a good surplus of arms in AAA. You got some big league pitchers down there throwing real. Tristan Beck, Sean Jelly. You got some other guys down there that are throwing well, but I just don't think Buster Posey is going to pull the cord. You know, I was looking at a stat today. The Giants and the Phillies are the only teams that really haven't had that many transactions when you think about it. And it's totally different than what we saw with Farhan Zaidi here. I think what Bob Melvin and Buster Posey's looking at is, let's give these guys length. Let's give them some more time. Let's see if they can come out of their slumps. If they're playing good baseball, they're 24-15. That's going to limit these guys more at bats, more time to get back on the horse and ride it like we know they can. But sooner or later, Bruce, you're going to have to look at this and go, where can we get better? And I think that's going to be the next step. But until then, this team is comfortable with what they are. And, Bruce, we can talk about it all day long. I just don't think they're going to do anything now. And we should be proud of what they're doing. And let's hope these guys get out of their slumps. But great call again, Bruce. Thanks for your time. Let's go to Pacheco and talk to Dino. Dino, what's going on a Friday night?
Good to talk to you. I've never called you before. I called everybody else, and they know me pretty good.
I'm on weekends, Dino. I'm a weekend kind of guy.
You know what? You know what, Bill? I grew up watching you. I'm 67. I'm a young 67. I remember when you played for the Giants. You were a big man, and I'll never forget that on the mound. But you look really mean. And you know what? You're just. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, Bill. You're just a perfect gentleman. I mean, you've always been. You've always had. You're nothing but class. You've always been that way. Even you and my hero Vida and the Oakland A's, the rest of the '70s, the rest of the early '70s A's. Those were my heroes growing up.
Yeah. We just celebrated. We shouldn't say celebrate, but 2 years now. Vida's passed away. That happened about a week ago. It's a day that I'll never forget, and it's a friend that I will forever remember.
Yeah, no doubt. You guys were good buddies, man. And obviously this life, none of us.
Right. Well, you respect your friends, you remember the good times, and that's what Vida and I had. And the people that knew he and I when we were around him made you laugh, and we made you comfortable. And if you couldn't laugh with Vida Blue, you're not you didn't understand Vida, because Vida was a very homegrown guy. He gave you his, shirt off his back, as they always say, but you know what? He was true blue, and there's no question about that.
It's the same with you, Bill. I can tell you're all class. But anyway, I want to ask you a question, Bill. I want to ask you a question. As a kid growing up, and you were probably the same way, obviously. I was a very blessed athlete. If it wasn't for an injury, maybe I would have made. I have plenty of friends that made the majors. I won't go into the names, you know them. But anyway, but an injury, back in those days, a knee injury, you were done. And back in those days, before arthroscopic and all that kind of stuff. And so anyway, I got a question for you. As a kid growing up, Bill, I always thought, we always think, first of all, we grew up hearing about Babe Ruth and everything, and our generation did, and yours too. And so, we always thought, used to think when I was a young kid that home runs were like the greatest offensive stat you could have. I mean, if you're the home run king, and Babe Ruth was the guy or whatever, and then Willie was getting close, and Willie was right there, and anyway, but and then after a while, as I got older, in my like 14, 15, started playing those pony leagues and things like that, I started thinking, what hits is like probably the most important offensive stat there is, and so I always idolized. It was amazing, what Pete Rose, how he just
of course.
was so far ahead of everybody. How he was
Tony
so far
Gwynn's another one too, Dino. What about Tony Gwynn, Rod Carew?
Well, Rod Carew, and all those guys, of course. But obviously Pete was like a million miles ahead of everybody.
Machine.
I mean, it was incredible.
Machine.
Over 4,000 something, 4,100 or something. But anyway, Bill, I got a question for you. In your mind, to this day, in your mind, what do you think the most important offensive stat is? Because I had a change of heart at about age 47, Bill. And so,
well, you know what? I tell you one stat I always look at is on base percentage. On base percentage is hits, walks, hits by pitch. When the number's over 300, 350, it's pretty good. You're on base a lot. I look at that for hitters. I like to look at that number because that's just telling me you're watching pitches more. You're driving the pitch. You know, if you're waiting in the zone a little bit more for the pitch. As a pitcher, I look at that instead of looking at a batting average.
But I'm talking about like all-time stat. What do you think your most important?
Oh, I'm going right with you about Pete Rose's singles,
stat.
base hits. You got to get on base.
Right? Hit.
You got to get on base, all the good hitters. All the Hall of Famers look at their hit counts, and that's where batting averages come from. Power numbers.
Bill, I was that way too. For all my life, I was that way until October 4th, 2004, Bill. I had my back. I'll never forget. I was about 47 years old. I was married with my wife and everything. I had my back to the TV that day, and ESPN was on, and the announcer, you know, it was a special day. You remember this, but the announcer said, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, that this was the most important stat ever, offensive, but more than hits, more than home runs, more than anything. So October 4th, 2004. ESPN was on, and the announcer goes, ladies and gentlemen, today Rickey Henderson has crossed home plate more than anybody else in the game of baseball ever. And that hit me. That was like, wow. I mean, I never expected that, you know. That has to me.
That's
a
great stat.
That changed my mind.
That's a surprise. That's a great surprise
it took me 50
stat.
Years, almost 50 years. Yeah.
But Dino, how do you think he got on base before he started? But Dino, how did he get on base before he touched home plate?
It doesn't matter. He just turned the walk, he turned the home run, he turned the single into a triple. You know, he did everything.
Is that on base? On base percentage had to be.
But he crossed. But the fact that he crossed home plate, that's a team stat. I mean, he crossed home plate more than anybody else. In the
and you know what? He was one of the fierce. He was one of the fierce runners. I remember looking at him throwing over there. I knew he was going. You know he's going. It's just when was the question. Yeah, but you know what? He was sensational player, sensational tools.
Yeah, and before him, you know, stolen bases. My idol was Lou Brock, but before Rickey came along, and you know, but anyway, but
good one. That was a good one. I'll remember that one, Dino. I'll remember that one. But thanks for the call.
I thought that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Bill.
Dino, I appreciate your time. Call in on weekends when I'm on. We'll be able to talk more baseball. I appreciate your time. Let's go to San Jose and talk to Dennis. Dennis, you're on a Sports Phone KNBR show tonight with Bill Lasky. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Bill. Listen, the caller before that was talking about the way the team's hitting. You know, I agree we have a problem with the hitting, but, you know, it's got to be mental, I think, for every one of those players sometimes, I think, because they've proven they can hit the ball, man. I mean, one game they get 25 hits, another game they bring in 9 runs. I mean, they can hit. It's a
well, it's the highs and lows, Dennis, right? It's the highs and lows of hitting. And, you know, the greatest hitters got 3 hits and 10 at-bats. The, you know, middle average are getting 2, and some of them are getting 1. Those numbers have decreased. When you're looking at a Major League Baseball team, batting average is around 230, 225. You know, and the Giants have done well. They're 24-15. They're getting run support. Look what they did in Chicago. 9 runs in the 11th inning. How cool was that? And you know what? It just didn't happen tonight, Dennis, and let's hope they turn it around tomorrow against Joe Ryan.
Is Webb pitching tomorrow?
Yes, sir. Logan Webb Day. It's a win day.
Okay, I got to ask you something, Bill. You said you were in baseball for 25 years. Is that you were in baseball for the professionals for 25 years, right?
No, I was in professional baseball for 13 years.
Yeah, and like
13 years, but also played college ball, high school ball, you know, all the other years to it, and then I coached after it. So, It's been a long run with baseball. I've been an analyst on TV for 9 years. I've been radio for over 10 years, and I keep my nose into baseball. I learn a lot. I don't ever say I know a lot, but I do know baseball. But at the same time, Dennis, there's always something every day that you learn from the game of baseball. And, Dennis, you've done that for years because you call in and you pick up things and you talk about it.
Hey, let me tell you something, Bill. Like I think I told you once before, I went and saw a game where you pitched, and I swear to God, it went into the 10th inning or 9th inning, whatever it was, but you had like a 5-hitter going, you know, and you won the game. I think they might have took you out. I'm not sure in the 7th or 8th. But you pitched.
Yeah, I don't think I lasted more than 9 innings. I can tell you that. I didn't go that deep into 10th or 11th game like Juan Marichal. But, Dennis, thanks for the call. Let's see if the Giants can pull out a win tomorrow. Let's go out to San Francisco or even Lake Merced. I'd like that even better, and talk to Big Sam. Big Sam, you're on with Bill Lasky on KNBR tonight. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, Bill, how you doing, brother?
How are you doing, man? I saw Big Sam, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I haven't talked to him in a while. What's going on, my friend?
I'm doing real good. You know, Bill, man, I'm real glad we made the connection. I'm real glad we met and stay in touch, and you're a great guy. People love you.
Well, I appreciate you picking up the phone and calling me, Big Sam. It's always a good baseball conversation when you call in, and it's always positive, which I love.
You know what? I like to bring the good vibes, the cosmic vibes, as I call it. You know, what I take with a grain of salt, and no matter, I'm 50 years old, but no matter if I'm 95 or I'm 25, I'm going to pick up on callers. I'm going to pick up on analysts. I'm going to pick up on such people like yourself. And you continue to grow, and you bring the yearning of knowledge, and you know your stuff when you make calls.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
With that being said, if you would have told me by early or middle May this team is close to winning 25 games, I'll take that. I'll take that straight to the bank.
I agree.
And I know that this team is capable to get that. Now, I'm not going to go overboard and say they're going to hit 90 and 95 wins just because the division is going to be so tough. But I am expecting to win at the very least, 85 games because this team up and down, 1 through 9. And look, the law of average, they're going to hit slumps.
Right.
We saw Willie Adames. We saw Adames in the left.
Matt Chapman. How about Matt Chapman when he left New York? He was done 0 for 23. You know, these guys go up and down. We know that.
And so whether it's being patient at the plate, whether it's spending more time at the batting cage, spending more time with your batting coach, maybe even hitting up old Mr. number 25 and maybe getting some tips from him, it's going to work out. And I'm really glad that this team is gelling now, and I know that come end of May, even in the early June, that we're going to be closer to that midpoint where they want to be. Now, whether it's getting early run support for Jordan Hicks, whether it's getting early run support for your 3, 4, 5 guys, I think this team is bound to make some moves. If Buster Posey is a smart and sharp guy, he's going to say, look, and as you mentioned on the previous segment, and your callers, your senior callers said, hey, what is it going to take to get over that hump where we're going to be consistently with 10 games over 500, 15 games over 500, and we make that drastic move? You could see an acquisition because they've got a lot of arms in Sacramento. They got a lot of talent where they can go after that veteran. And I look back on the World Series that when they made those acquisitions, when they got Cody Ross and they got Hunter Pence, those are some big power moves.
Well, you know what? I'll throw you this one, Big Sam. I got the interview coming up on Sunday with Bryce Eldridge. I had to sit down with him yesterday, and we talked. And we talked about a lot of things that he's trying to correct, a lot of things he's trying to get better at. And at the same time, he's adjusting. He's in Double-A in Richmond, mentally right there, mentally just powered on, just, happy he's playing, learning to play first base. He was hitting over 300. He had a 7-game hitting streak, kind of fumbled a little bit the last couple of games, but he's still not hitting with power. I said, what are they adjusting to? And he goes, yeah, they're throwing me nothing but junk now. And I sat back and I go, if you were pitching to you, what would you throw yourself? And he just started laughing, of course, because, of course, I'm not going to throw him a fastball. But I just loved his outlook. I loved his outlook. I'm glad he got to meet Bob Melvin, went to spring training. He was a little kid. But he understands what things he has to improve on. Everybody thinks Bryce Eldridge is going to be this 20-year-old savior. He's just out of high school 2 years ago, Big Sam. 2 years ago, he was in high school. Think about that. He would be a sophomore in college this year.
The kid is barely 19, 20 years old.
20 years old. He just turned 20. Yeah. And I think people need to understand, I loved what Buster Posey said. I love what Bob Melvin said. Randy Wynn even said it. This kid's got all the talent. We got to let him mature. We got to let him groom. We got to get foundation under him. So when he does come up to the big leagues, he doesn't go back down. And you do that by getting more plate appearance. You get more playing time. And that's what we're seeing with this lineup. As I said earlier, Bailey's just got 100 at bats. You can't judge anything on 100 bats. You got to judge them at 200 or 250, 300. And you're seeing that a little bit more. And these guys are getting better. Willie Adames has better swings now. Matt Chapman's swinging a better. Wilmer Flores gets that key hit when people are on base. There are things going upward. They're not playing bad baseball when they won 24 games. It's just nights like this that puzzle us as fans by saying, why couldn't we hit him? Chris Paddock had a 5.5 earned run average. How in the hell did he get us 17 straight guys out? Well, he's a major league pitcher, Big Sam. He can do that. You get into a rhythm, you get in a routine, everything comes out your hand right, and next thing you know, the hitters are making themselves out. And I think that's what the Giants did today. And I think that's why Bob Melvin said, we were not crisp today. We let Paddock bring us into those situations where we make outs instead of the opposite of attacking him.
Paddock dictated the game, and I don't blame Bob Melvin for getting upset. Hey, Bill, you got to come to Westlake Joe's. That's my neighborhood. That's my neck of the woods.
All right, my friend. We'll hook up. And we'll definitely do lunch or something up there. I love that restaurant. It's a great restaurant. Big Sam, it's always a pleasure, man.
Keep moving the needle, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks again for your time. That was Big Sam. And so many callers, and you guys are so right in what you watch, and you analyze the game so well, and the conversations when you bring it on to myself and other hosts, you're right there. And you do analyze the game. You are watching swing pass. You are watching pitchers attack the zone. That's why Giants fans, like I always say, I enjoy talking to you. It's a fun time, and this weekend I'll be right back out here Saturday and Sunday to continue the conversation. But coming up next, I'm going to bring my buddy Steve Kroner on, and we'll see what he had to say about the game, because I love to see his reactions and how he analyzes it. So we'll talk to Steve Kroner coming up next right here on Sports Phone KNBR. It's the leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome back to Sports Phone KNBR on a Friday night. Giants lose the first game of a 3-game series against the Minnesota Twins 3-1 tonight. Minnesota Twins have now won 6 in a row. The San Francisco Giants now are 2-2 on this road trip of 6 games. Tomorrow, 4:15 first pitch right here on KNBR. Logan Webb against Joe Ryan, a couple of right-handers that are really throwing the ball well. Logan Webb 4-2 with a 2.6. Joe Ryan 2-2 with a 2.9. So we'll see what the Giants can muster up tomorrow against another right-hander. They're 22-6 against right-hand starters. Of course, today they lost to Chris Paddock. All right, my guest today, 25 years wrote for the San Francisco Chronicle. He covers the San Francisco Giants prospects for Baseball America. I can't call him Late Night Steve Kroner tonight, but he's usually on Late Night on Fridays with me. But let's just bring in Steve, my good buddy. Steve, how are you?
Phil, I'm doing okay. It is a little weird talking to you before the 11 o'clock hour, but I think we can adjust.
Maybe I'll call you later tonight. How's that? We'll just discuss it off air.
Absolutely.
Well, Steve, these games like this, there's no question about it. When you're watching Chris Paddock just carve up the lineup, and then at the end of the game, you only get 3 hits. And a few of the callers mentioned about batting averages, and they seem to jump at you now when you're looking at a team that scuffled today. But still, when you're looking at 24-15 as a record, you kind of got to bypass it a little bit because they are winning. What do you think about these batting averages? Is this something we should be concerned about when you're only 39 games into the season?
Bill, I'm kind of two minds on this. On one level, sure, you would like to have higher batting average, higher on-base percentage, higher OPS. But I heard some of your callers discussing this, and I did a little bit of research. The Giants at the moment are 24th in the major leagues in batting average at 233. They're 22nd in on-base percentage at 309. They're 17th in slugging at 383. But that Carla who said that the most important thing is crossing home plate, that Ricky Henderson did more than anybody else, the Giants are 10th in runs scored. So even though the average numbers, the on-base percentage, the slugging percentage aren't what you'd like them to be, if you're top 10 in run scoring and as good as your pitching is, that does explain why they're 24-15, even though their batting average is 24th in the majors.
And you have to look at individual numbers. That's what I think people are looking at. And, of course, you look at Patrick Bailey, Lamont Wade Jr. We talk about this every Friday when we've been talking week after week. Two guys that everybody just wants to kind of point that target on. And they have gotten better. Bailey got a couple nice hits in Chicago. Lamont Wade Jr. hit a couple balls, for a double here and there. But it's the consistency we're not seeing out of both of them.
Yeah, and, the old rule about you don't make many rash decisions about teams or players until they've played 40 games, basically 1 quarter of the season. Well, they played 39, so it's not a small sample anymore. Lamont Wade and Patrick Bailey have been struggling, and you'd like to see them not struggle as much, but, maybe this isn't going to be their year. Now, Bailey obviously he did not have a great throw today, but Bailey obviously gives you great defense behind the plate. And as we have discussed, Lamont Wade Jr. has become a pretty darn good defensive first baseman. And I think, in baseball terms, you can take a great defensive catcher who doesn't hit the way you would like him more than you can take a very good defensive first baseman who doesn't hit the way you like, because first base is supposed to be a position that you're not necessarily going to get great batting average, but you should get power, and the Giants aren't getting power from the first base position right now.
Oh, you're so right. It's always the corner guys that give you more power. Your up the middle guys are more defense. You're not really looking at averages. And then you look at your outfielders to kind of drive in runs and get higher batting averages. And I think that's what probably Buster Posey and Bob Melvin, both excellent catchers during their career, is looking at Patrick Bailey saying he's our best catcher. They had 2 stolen bases off him today. One was a skip in. And, he's definitely frames the ball well, blocks the ball well. A couple of them got by him today. But when you're looking at the pitching staff that he's trying to control and really work each guy, boy, he's got all different arm angles, all different velocities, all different breaking balls. And you got to tip your hat to this kid.
Yeah, just think if you're the catcher and things are going the way Bob Melvin and the Giants would like them to go, in the 7th inning, you've got Camilo Doval, who's throwing 98 to 100 from a different arm angle. Then in comes Tyler Rogers, who's throwing the ball from the grass at about 82 miles an hour. And then Ryan Walker comes in with his slider and fastball from that strange. I mean, you've got 3 very different pitchers back to back to back. And usually if those guys are in the game is tight. So not only are you concerned about framing their pitches, you've also got to be concerned about blocking them so, any potential runners don't advance. That's certainly a feather in the cap for Patrick Bailey.
That voice you hear on Sports Phone KNBR, my good friend Steve Kroner. I read a statistic the other day. I saw it on one of the stat sheets, and they compared Willy Adames and Carlos Correa. Pretty cool, impressive things. Correa signed 6 years, $200 million. Adames 7 years, $182. Correa on his lifetime, well, not really lifetime. They averaged 20-24 his year last year. Hit 251. Correa hit 310. This year, Adames 230. Correa 226. 4 home runs for Adames. 2 home runs for Correa. 19 and 12. It is really comparable when you're looking at what they do against each other. Last year, of course, Willy Adames had 32 home runs. Correa only had 14. But if you look at this another way, what if the Giants would have had Correa? What if the Giants would have signed him for this big, long contract? Would you have been happy with these numbers?
I would say probably not. And then, obviously, the Twins took a gamble that the Giants, and don't forget, the Giants weren't the only team that had a deal
the Mets.
with
the Mets were in there.
The Mets
sure.
had one too.
Yeah.
So there obviously was something about his medical file that gave both of those teams pauses, and particularly to give him that kind of money. So if that's still in the back of your mind that, he's not producing exactly the way we'd like, and we don't know if that's ever going to get better because we don't know about his medical condition, then, I think both teams made the right decision. Now, he certainly hasn't been bad with Minnesota, but he hasn't been the Carlos Correa who got the kind of money he was going to get when he was in Houston. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. And when you look at what the Giants were ready to spend, it wasn't $200 million. It was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Giants fans would have been disappointed in watching him play as we've seen him with the Minnesota Twins. He's a very above-average player, no question, but he's not that elite of a player. I still think Willy Adames will come through with power numbers. When you look at his defense, it shines sometimes. Sure enough, he throws some balls away. But I still take Adames and Chapman on the left side. And today, another game with Chapman making some superior plays. He's just so consistent. He threw a couple balls away in the Cub game, the first game, when they lost 9-3 or 9-2. He made a couple errors. Adames made a couple errors. Sometimes he wants to make that ESPN big play and he throws him away, but I'll take his play any day, and he can try whatever he wants to do because, Steve, I think he's one of the best third basemen in big leagues.
I don't think there's any question. I mean, I'm old. I've watched a lot of third basemen. I remember Brooks Robinson and Mike Schmidt. Matt Williams was a heck of a defensive third baseman. Greg Nettles. Matt Chapman's as good as all those guys. I really believe it. He might not be quite the fielder, say, that Brooks Robinson was, but he's got a better arm. I mean, Matt Chapman certainly ranks, in my lifetime, top 10 defensive third baseman and very possibly top 5.
Let's go on the pitching side. You know I love talking pitching.
I know you do.
And I'm very impressed what Kyle Harrison's done in 2 outings. He's got his fastball back up to 98. He's thrown that slurve. But I think he looks better. I think he looks more confident. He went to AAA and threw the ball very well down there. His velocity moved up. He got to about 5-6 innings in his starts, and now he's coming out of the bullpen, something he's never learned before. But then the 2 outings I've seen him, I just think he's matured on the mound. I just feel there's a different presence on him.
Yeah, and Bill, I'll just throw this one at you. His whole career he's been a starter, and I think the Giants at some point want to make him a starter again. If he were to become a starter, and look, the Giants need another lefty in the bullpen besides Eric Miller, so he is serving a purpose there. But if you want to get him in the bullpen, say in the next 2 weeks to 4 to 5 weeks, who comes out of the rotation? My guess would be either Landon Roop or Jordan Hicks, or might the Giants do what some teams have done lately and go with a 6-man rotation? What do you think would happen there?
I don't think they'll go 6-man because now when you're looking at the schedule, Steve, you have that Thursday off, and it's every Thursday now. So I don't think they're going to push a guy one more day, which is good. I like that. They've been keeping Logan Webb on that 5th day all the time. That's what Logan Webb wants to do. Sinker-type slider, curveball pitcher. You want him out there every 5th day. It's the guys like Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander, giving them an extra day, mainly because of their age a little bit, but they've been pitching so well you may not want them to have a day off.
Right.
Jordan Hicks has just not gotten a lot of run support. And you're looking at his numbers, I mean, he's kept him in the game. 3 earned runs against Colorado, 2 against Texas. He faltered with 5 in Milwaukee, got the loss. But other games like that, 2 or 3 or 1. And I don't think Giants fans are on him. They want him out of the starting rotation. They either want Birdsong or Harrison. But I think the guy that's going to possibly get out of this is Landon Roop. I think Landon Roop is struggling enough that there may be a switch. I don't know. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I mentioned Landon and Roop, but I'll play a little devil's advocate here. Landon Roop has 35 innings pitched this season. He's got 39 strikeouts and 14 walks. That's pretty good. I mean, it is. It would be hard to take him out of the rotation right now. I think. I don't think he deserves to be removed from the rotation right now. No. I'm just looking.
Down the road, sure.
In
that Cub game, he had so much soft contact. I was getting mad at the bloops and the little ground balls getting through. And then they said even on a stat of that game that he's one of the top 3 for soft contact against a starting pitcher. And then I start going back on some of his games, and they're absolutely right. There's been a lot of bloops, a lot of ground balls, a lot of balls that fall in. Boy, you can see it on his face sometimes. He gets disgusted, but he still comes out there and battles. I like how he is aggressive on the mound. I just don't know what they're going to do with him as the road continues. You said it, 35 innings he's pitched, giving up 40 hits, 19 earned runs. Is it better, or are they going to continue to keep throwing him out there? We don't know. He's had 7 starts. He'll get his 8th one on Sunday against Minnesota. I just don't think Bob Melvin, and I don't think Buster Posey's going to change anything. They're 24-15, Steve.
Very well put, Bill. That's the those are the 2 numbers that matter most.
That's all that matters.
In the world of shout outs, I think we got to give a shout out to East Bay High School baseball tonight, because to end the 7th inning, you had Kyle Harrison, a lefty from De La Salle High, getting out Trevor Larnick from College Park High.
Look at you.
Yeah, give it up for the East Bay. I'm guessing they probably didn't face each other a lot growing up because Larnick's about 5 years older than Harrison. But De La Salle, College Park, those are 2 of the best programs in the East Bay, probably in the Bay Area, and they got some representation tonight.
Well, Steve, as we finish up here tomorrow, Logan Webb against Joe Ryan. Both of them are pitching very well. And then Sunday, Landon Roop against Pablo Lopez. And Pablo Lopez was a guy way back when he was pitching Miami. and he was a free agent, and I was hoping they would pick him up. I just love the kid, how he throws. He's consistent. He doesn't throw hard. He throws strikes. And when you look at his line, 33 innings pitched, 37 strikeouts, 5 walks. That's Pablo Lopez. He gets you out on junk. He gets you with a good fastball. I think they're going to have a tough time with Joe Ryan as well as Pablo Lopez.
Yeah, I mean, if Pablo Lopez sounds like the games that have been tonight and the last Friday night,
right.
Games will be fast. Tonight's game was 2:05. Last Friday night was Giants beat Colorado, a game I covered for AP. That game was only 2 hours and 2 minutes. So, yeah, if Pablo Lopez is on his game, don't blink because that game might be over pretty quick.
Well, Steve, thanks for joining me, and I'll call you about 11:30 so we can consistently keep our streak going with late night Steve Kroner.
I'm all for it.
All right. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your time. That was Steve Kroner on Sports Phone KNBR. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
KNBR keeps rolling live from the KNBR Casino Matrix Progressive Jackpot Studios. Casino Matrix Progressive Jackpots are here. Where are you? Just drop in. Please play responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome back to Sports Phone KNBR with Bill Lasky as we finish up a Friday post-game show. Giants lose today to Minnesota 3-1. Tomorrow, right after it, at 4:15, first pitch right here on KNBR. Logan Webb against Joe Ryan. I'd like to thank my guest today, Steve Kroner. You can hear his interview on the All KNBR podcast. Want to thank Danny Dunn for producing the show, Anthony picking up the calls. Extra inning post-game show will be on tomorrow as well as Sunday, as I'll be entertaining you on that show, and I'll be looking forward to bringing you some great interviews. Denard Span tomorrow. We're also going to talk to the owner of Birdman Bats, and we're going to talk to Gary about the torpedo bat and other ways that baseball players are making bats and how he produces them. Really be a good show tomorrow. And then on Sunday, we're finishing up with Joe Nathan. Of course, he's in the Hall of Fame with the Minnesota Twins. And I sat down with the number one prospect for the San Francisco Giants, Bryce Eldridge. You'll hear all those interviews on Saturday and Sunday on Extra Inning Postgame Show. For Bill Lasky, be safe, be well. Have a great rest of the night. More coming up right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader.
Giants baseball, nothing like it.
Here's a long drive to right. It's headed for the bay.
On KNBR and KNBR FM, San Francisco.
For ISN, 888-710-4476.